Right, can you repeat that?
Of course, happy to. So today's focus is on the Recovery Wellness Program, and you'll be diving into three main areas. First up, you'll be looking at spiritual principles and values, which is really about understanding your own core values and how they support your recovery. Then you'll move on to the body, brain, and mind, where you'll cover things like the SCARF model and emotional intelligence. Finally, you'll explore growth and community, focusing on goal setting, healthy boundaries, and building recovery capital. In essence, you're blending practical tools with deeper principles to really ground your recovery journey.
Thank you. And where shall I start?
You're very welcome. I'd suggest starting right at the beginning with the spiritual principles and values. That's your module one, and it's a great foundation because it helps you reflect on what really matters to you. Once you've got that grounding, you can move forward into the brain and mind section and then onto growth and community. But definitely kick off with those spiritual principles to set the tone.
Can you tell me why that's important?
Absolutely. Starting with the spiritual principles and values is important because it really lays the groundwork for everything else you're going to do. When you understand your own core values and the principles that guide you, you're essentially giving yourself a compass for your recovery journey. It helps you align your recovery process with what truly matters to you as a person. In other words, by starting there, you're not just jumping into techniques or tools, you're actually anchoring everything in a deeper understanding of who you are and what you believe in. That makes all the following steps more meaningful and sustainable in the long run.
And why is it important that I do this while I'm at CDOS?
Well, it's quite significant because at CDARS, you're already in a setting that supports recovery and community engagement. Doing this foundational values work in an environment like CDARS means you're surrounded by resources, support, and people who are aligned with that journey. It's a bit like planting seeds in fertile soil. You've got the right setting to reflect, ask questions, and get the support you need. Also, CDARS is a place where you're already contributing and engaging with others. So by starting with your values there, you're not just doing it in isolation. You're actually embedding those principles in a real world, community focused context, which makes the learning that much more practical and meaningful.
And I'm currently in sheltered housing at Western Lodge. How can that help me here? What's the relevance of it while I'm here?
Absolutely. So, being in sheltered housing like Western Lodge is actually quite a supportive environment for this kind of work. Essentially, it gives you a stable and safe space where you can focus on your recovery journey without some of the outside pressures you might face elsewhere. It's a bit like having a secure base to return to as you're exploring these deeper principles and values. In other words, Western Lodge gives you a bit of breathing room and a supportive community around you. That can help you integrate what you're learning more comfortably and give you a bit of a cushion as you work through your values and recovery goals. So it's all about using that stable environment to really focus on your growth.
Okay, so I'm currently receiving universal credit. I'm in supported housing and I've got a lot of external recovery capital around me. I've got a daily program that I can attend, but I'm still suffering with anxiety and paranoia and stress. Um, how do you think I should deal with that?
Well, first of all, it sounds like you've got a good amount of external support in place, which is a solid foundation. Now, wearing my hat as a bit of a legal and medical expert here, I'd say that addressing anxiety, paranoia, and stress is really about blending the support you have with some internal tools. One key thing is to lean into those daily programs and the recovery capital you have. Make use of mindfulness or grounding techniques that might come up in your training. And remember, it's perfectly normal to feel these things even when you've got a lot of support around you. Recovery is a process. From a medical legal perspective, it's also worth making sure you're in touch with any professional services that can help with anxiety, whether that's talking therapies, perhaps a GP or counselor, or even some of the recovery coaching techniques you're learning. Ultimately, it's
Yeah,
and just around,
finish up.
of course, just to wrap that thought up, it's really about combining that stable environment you're in with the tools and strategies you're learning. Over time, that should help you manage those feelings of anxiety or stress a little more effectively. And of course, never hesitate to lean on the professional support available to you as well. You're definitely on the right track.
Okay, so Christopher Robin is my key worker at CDARS, and he's really been very beneficial in pointing me in the right directions. And here, Jackie is looking after us in the house. Across the road, there's some AA meetings if I want to go to. And CEDA's put on various community activities. Um, what other things can I do in the area to help me socialize?
Absolutely. It sounds like you've got a really supportive network around you already, which is brilliant. Now, thinking a bit like a sort of legal and commercial advisor here, one of the best things you can do is tap into local community resources that might not be directly tied to CDARS, but still offer social interaction. For example, you might look into local libraries or community centres. They often have social clubs, workshops, or even hobby groups that meet regularly. Since you're in supported housing, there may be partnerships with local initiatives that you can join. Maybe a gardening project, a local art class, or even a sports group. It's really about finding something that interests you and helps you connect with others in a relaxed way. And of course, having those AA meetings and CDARS activities nearby is a fantastic fallback whenever you feel like you need them.
Okay. And what recovery friendly services are available here in Wandsworth?
In Wandsworth, you've got quite a few recovery-friendly services to tap into. For instance, there's the Central Wandsworth and West Battersea Integrated Recovery Hub, which can offer you mental health support and treatment. You've also got CDARS itself, which you're familiar with, and the Wandsworth Community Drug and Alcohol Service that offers free evidence-based treatment. There's also the Sunshine Recovery Cafe, which is a safe space if you're experiencing any mental health crisis. So you've got a good range of local resources you can explore to help you socialize and get the support you need.
Okay. What's in the program next week?
It looks like I hear a little snag trying to pull up that info directly, but not to worry. Generally, next week in your program, you'll likely be moving on to the next step in your recovery wellness journey. That often means building on the principles and tools you've already started with, perhaps diving deeper into some of the emotional intelligence or growth and community topics we touched on earlier. If you have any specific session details or a schedule from the program, feel free to share that and I can help piece it together. Otherwise, you're probably just continuing to build on the great foundation you've set this week.
Okay. So I know the program is spiritual principles, and then we talk about the brain and the mind, and then community and growth, and finally resilience and wellness. So if this was week one, tell me what's available next week.
Absolutely. That gives us a nice roadmap to work with. So if this week was all about those spiritual principles and getting that foundational understanding, next week you'll be moving into the brain and the mind. That typically means you'll be exploring things like the SCARF model and perhaps a bit of mindfulness and emotional intelligence, really focusing on how your mind works in the context of recovery. After that, you'll shift into the community and grid section in the following week, and then on to resilience and wellness. So next week is really about understanding the workings of your own mind and how that fits into your recovery journey. It's a nice logical step forward from where you are now. It seems ironic. No problem at all. Essentially, next week, you'll likely just be continuing to build on what you've been learning. You'll probably move into the next set of modules or themes, like exploring more about growth, community engagement, and some of those deeper recovery tools. So you'll just be building on the strong foundation you've set. And if there's anything more specific, we can always dig into it, but you're definitely on the right track.
So one of my personal values is I like teaching and using technology to assist people. And some of us have gotten together and we want to form a LIRA, a Lived Experience Recovery Organization. And we've got our kind of teething problems of coming together. How can you help us?
Absolutely, and that sounds like a fantastic initiative to get a Lero off the ground. With your passion for teaching and using technology, you're already bringing a lot to the table. Now, from a sort of legal and commercial perspective, one way I can help is to guide you on setting up the organizational structure. That might mean helping you figure out your governance, your roles, and maybe even the legal bits like how to register as a community interest company, if that's the route you want to take. On the technology side, I can definitely help you think through how to leverage tools, like setting up a shared online space for your team, using simple project management apps, or even building a little website to get your message out. And of course, there are the softer skills, helping you and your group figure out how to communicate effectively, iron out those teething issues, and just get everyone on the same page. So we can definitely walk through all of that and get your Lero up and running smoothly.
Okay. Tell me about the fourth sector.
Absolutely. The fourth sector is a pretty interesting concept. Essentially, it sits at the intersection of the public sector, the private sector, and the non-profit sector. So you can think of it as this emerging space where social enterprises, mission-driven businesses, and organizations that want to do good while also being financially sustainable all come together. So instead of just being purely for profit or purely charitable, fourth sector organizations blend both. They aim to create social impact, but do it in a commercially viable way. And that can be really powerful because it often means more sustainable funding and longer term impact. So if you're thinking about your Lero, for example, it's a bit like positioning it not just as a non-profit, but as something that could potentially generate its own income or sustain itself while delivering social good. It's a really exciting space to be in.
Okay, so we've got our teething problems going on. As first of all, we don't really know what we're doing until we've done it, and there's all sorts of governance and policy issues that need to be put in place that we're not sure of. There's poor communication amongst team members, and you can appreciate that the population that are putting this together largely have been stigmatized and marginalized people. How do we navigate through that? Because essentially everyone's kind of traumatized, and we need support in communicating and getting the message across, because everyone wants to do good work, but often things are lost in communication. How can you help there?
Absolutely, and you're spot on that it can be a bit of a journey, especially when everyone's coming from a place of lived experience, and there's that element of overcoming stigma and past trauma. So first things first, one of the best ways I can help is by guiding you through setting up a bit of structure and governance without it feeling overwhelming. We can start with the basics, putting together some really simple, clear guidelines for how you want to run things. That could be a basic charter or some ground rules on communication. We can look at tools that make it easier for everyone to stay on the same page. Maybe something as simple as a shared online chat or a project board where everyone can see what's happening. And from a governance point of view, we can talk about how to create a bit of a framework that supports everyone, especially understanding that people are coming from different backgrounds, might need a bit more support. It's all about creating a safe space where people feel heard and understood. Ultimately, it's about blending a bit of structure with a lot of empathy, and I'm more than happy to help you navigate that so that everyone feels empowered and those communication lines open up.
Okay, so I've built this so other people can make use of it. So we've moved this to a GPT. So there's kind of democratization of the data and the information. How do we make sure that people are staying in the within the right data? So explain how we vectorize the information for people that maybe don't understand.
Absolutely, that's a great step. Using a GPT to democratize the information is a fantastic way to make it accessible. So let me break it down in a simple way. When we talk about vectorizing information, what we mean is we're turning all that knowledge, your documents, guidelines, everything, into a format that the GPT can understand and search through very quickly. Think of it like turning all your information into coordinates on a map. Each piece of knowledge becomes a point, and the GPT can then find and connect those points really easily. So by vectorizing, we're just making sure that when someone asks the GPT a question, it can pull the right information from the right spot in that map of knowledge. That way everyone stays on track and gets consistent, accurate info. It's a bit technical behind the scenes, but that's essentially how we keep everyone in the right lane and make sure the GPT is pulling from the correct pool of information.
Okay. And what about things like GDPR compliance and that sort of stuff?
Absolutely. GDPR compliance is a crucial piece of the puzzle, especially when you're dealing with sensitive information and working with people who might have been marginalized or traumatized. So from a legal standpoint, it's all about making sure you've got the right data protection and measures in place. What that means in practice is a few things. First, you want to make sure that any personal data you're collecting or using is stored securely and only accessed by people who really need it. Second, you want to be transparent with everyone involved, letting them know how their information is being used and giving them control over it. And third, it's about having clear policies in place, things like a privacy policy or consent form, so that you're always on the right side of those regulations. In other words, it's about making sure that while you're sharing knowledge and supporting people, you're also restricting their privacy and keeping their data safe. And I'm definitely here to help you navigate that as well.
Okay. So for me personally, I've ended up at CDARS for my own therapeutic need because I've really struggled with burnout working in this field. So I've really needed to take time out. But I do get a lot of motivation around putting things together and helping and yeah, providing this sort of stuff. So how do I get the balance right by kind of staying focused on my own therapeutic journey and doing something that gives me meaning and purpose that can, help leave the world in a better place?
Absolutely, and that's such an important question. It's a bit like being both the caregiver and the person needing care, isn't it? And it's really common in this kind of field to feel that pull to help others, even when you're working on your own recovery. So, from that sort of holistic, legal, therapeutic perspective, it's all about balance. One of the key things is to give yourself permission to prioritize your own well-being. That might mean setting really clear boundaries about how much time you spend on the Lero work versus your own recovery time. It's perfectly okay to have dedicated moments where you're just focusing on your own healing, and then separate moments where you dive into the meaningful work that motivates you. Another part of it is making sure you have the right support system around you, people who can remind you to take breaks or step back when you need to. And also recognizing that by looking after yourself, you're actually going to be even more effective in helping others. So it's not selfish at all, it's about sustainability. In She, we can definitely work on finding that rhythm so you feel both recharged and purposeful. And you're absolutely allowed to take that time for yourself.
Okay. I carry a lot of personal shame about this because on the one hand, I think I should have the knowledge to not get into this position. And the reality is, I find myself in this position, and that brings up quite a lot of emotion for me. I'm not sure what to do with that. I'm talking to my key worker about it, and I'm getting support from CDARS. But have you got any suggestions?
Absolutely. And first and foremost, I just want to say it's completely human to feel that way. You're definitely not alone in that feeling of, I should have known better, or but I shouldn't be in this position. But the reality is, we're all human. And even the most knowledgeable people can find themselves needing that extra support. It's actually a sign of strength that you're reaching out and getting the help you need. In terms of practical suggestions, I think continuing to talk to your key worker is great. That can be a really good sounding board. And also, maybe try to reframe that sense of shame into a bit of self-compassion. Remind yourself that by taking care of your own needs now, you're actually going to be in an even better position to help others in the future. It's a bit like that analogy of putting your own oxygen mask on first. Also, small practices like journaling or mindfulness can help you process those emotions and gradually let go of that self-judgment. It's all part of the healing journey. You're doing the right thing, and it's absolutely okay to be where you are right now.
Okay. So a lot of this work that I've put together is very much aligned with the Dame Carol Black report and the Harm to Hope strategy and OHID in the UK, and I'd like to know how we can spread this work out and support more Leros across the country, because I'm not the only person that is struggling like this. Could you tell us, if I was talking to a commissioner and the commissioner was sitting in front of me, what would I say to them?
Absolutely, and it's fantastic that you're aligning with the Dame Carol Black report and the Harm to Hope strategy. Those are really strong foundations to reference. So if you were sitting in front of a commissioner and explaining this, you'd want to highlight a few key points. First, you could say something like, we're building on the principles laid out in these national strategies. Our Nero model is directly in line with recommendations around integrating lived experience, reducing harm, and creating community-led recovery solutions. That immediately shows that you're aligned with the broader national goals. Then you might add, what we're looking to do is scale this approach so that other Leros across the country can benefit. We know that by supporting people with lived experience and using a model that's rooted in these proven strategies, we can create more resilient, recovery-friendly communities. And finally, you could say, we'd love your support in helping us share this model. perhaps through funding, partnerships, or just by connecting us with other organizations that could implement this approach. So really it's about showing that you're aligned with national policy, explaining the impact, and then inviting the commissioner to be part of spreading the solution. And of course, I'm here to help you shape that message however you need.
Okay, so I've been talking to you and I've been recording this into a live stream YouTube, which I'll turn into a podcast, which sits on top of um, Google infrastructure, where we use Google Docs and slides and YouTube and all that sort of stuff. And the reason we've chosen that is because it's accessible through Android devices. And we've created an internal communication app that sits on top of the Play Store and the App Store, which kind of brings people together so that we can have internal communication. And I want to know how we can kind of get some money to make this sustainable in a way that's transparent and lives to the values of a kick to which we have here in the UK, the Ubuntu Academy of Coaching Training, which is a kick that goes out and develops Leros. I'm just not sure how to navigate this in the world that doesn't kind of burn me out, where I feel supported, I feel understood. Because the other day when I was in the meeting with the commissioners and that, my anxiety really overtook me, and I got such kind of feelings of guilt that I'm doing things wrong. What do you suggest there?
Absolutely, and I really appreciate you sharing that. It's completely understandable that when you're putting so much heart into something, especially something as meaningful as this, it can feel overwhelming. So first off, it's good to acknowledge that those feelings are natural. Even when you're doing everything right, it's easy to feel that pressure. Now, in terms of making it sustainable and transparent, especially as a CIC, a community interest company, can definitely look at a few routes. For funding, you might want to approach it a bit like building a case based on the value you're bringing. Highlight how your platform is accessible and with supporting the community and how it aligns with those national strategies. Commissioners and funders really appreciate seeing that alignment. You can also look for grants aimed at digital inclusion or mental health support. There are quite a few out there. And as I say, you're in a good position to apply for those. And of course, building partnerships with organizations that share your vision can also help spread the load and resources. As for managing those feelings of anxiety in meetings, it's really about giving yourself permission to be human. Even commissioners are just people at the end of the day, and they understand that passion comes with a bit of nerve sometimes. You're not doing anything wrong, you're actually doing something really brave and impactful. So we can definitely keep working on that together and help you find that balance so you feel supported and confident moving forward.
Yeah. And what I also don't want to do is I don't want to step on the toes of existing organizations. So, for example, CDOS they're celebrating their 40 years this year, and I'm very grateful for what I've received from them. And I don't want to put any existing work under threat, or I really want to kind of collaborate and work with people. How do I get that messaging across? Because I think when I come into an environment, there's a lot of like, who is this guy? What's his motive? What's it all about? What is this technology? How's this going to work? And there's a lot of fear. How do I navigate those complex relationships?
Absolutely, and that's a really thoughtful way to approach it. It's fantastic you want to collaborate rather than step on toes, and I think that message in itself is really powerful. The key is making sure you lead with that spirit of collaboration right from the start. When you're talking to existing organizations like CDOS, you can frame it as, I really respect the work you've been doing for decades, and my goal is to add value to what you're already doing, not replace it. Emphasize that you're there to support and enhance, maybe even fill in some gaps that they haven't had the capacity to address. It's all about partnership rather than competition. You can also share a bit of your own story. Let them see you're someone who's been in the trenches, so to speak, and that your motivation is genuinely about helping the community. Sometimes just putting a human face to the technology can ease that fear. And if you approach these conversations by actively listening to their concerns, acknowledging them, and then explaining how you can work together, that can go a long way. It's all about building trust step by step. In the end, just keep that collaborative spirit front and center, and people will start to see you as a partner rather than a disruptor. But I'm here to help you navigate that process as you go along.
Okay. Now, you know the work that we've done with Recovery Connections, and then with Dot, and then with David Best and Inclusive Recovery Cities, and David Patton in the decolonization of education. There's academic credibility there. How do I weave that in as well without triggering people thinking that, oh God, here come the clever people?
Absolutely, and that's a really good nuance to consider. You've got this wealth of academic credibility behind you, but you also want to keep it approachable and not come across as, the ivory tower expert swooping in. So the key is to weave in that credibility by grounding it in real world impact. You can say something like, we've been fortunate to collaborate with amazing people like Dot and David Best, and what that really means is we're bringing tried and tested approaches that have worked in other communities. In other words, emphasize the practical on the ground benefits rather than just the academic theory. You can frame it as, we're using these insights to make things better for everyone, rather than leading with the credentials. That way people see it as, oh, these are useful tools that have worked elsewhere, not here come the experts to tell us what to do. So it's all about that tone of humility and partnership. You're bringing in respective voices, not to overshadow anyone, but to enrich what's already happening. And I'm sure you'll do that brilliantly.
Okay. All right. Well, I think this is quite a good start for a podcast between me and you. Um, yeah. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
Absolutely. And I just say in closing, you're doing something truly meaningful. And it's clear you've got both the heart and the expertise to make it happen. Keep that collaborative spirit, keep being kind to yourself along the way, and I think you'll find people are really receptive to what you're building. And of course, I'm always here to help you along with your journey. So best of luck with turning this into a podcast and getting your message out there. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Cool. Thanks. Bye. So, it's my room. Thank you, Wandsworth. I'm very, very grateful. Thank you for looking after me. Good night, everyone.